Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be going over with you guys the round 3 comps for Shishoufest, our next Lotto on NA. Again, the reason this is going to be important is because we are trying to get you guys the most efficient and consistent comps for you guys to run with the lowest thresholds for approachability. We want to make sure that the comps are able to be done by the majority of you. Obviously, you guys won't have every single capability to do every single comp in here. That's fine. Don't worry about that. We're just trying to give you enough options that you guys can find something that works for you. But before we begin, I actually have a little bit to talk to you guys about round 3 in particular. You see, round 3 is going to be probably the easiest of the rounds. And that may sound a little bit odd to you guys, as normally it seems to get harder over time to reward the extra drops that you get, but instead in this case it actually got easier. Round 1 was our hardest. Round 2 was probably, again, a lot easier for most people because a lot of people had some good casters. But round 3 especially should be super approachable for most of you guys. And we think we have a comp that's going to make it that good. And that's why we're not necessarily going to be doing as many comps for this. There are quite a bit of sort of plug and play comps here that you guys can actually mix and match certain pieces of it. So do keep that in mind as we go through. But there are plenty of other alternatives and options, and I'm going to try to list them out for you guys when we encounter them. Also, with regards to the 90 plus comps in particular, the first 2 waves are actually berserkers. So there's a couple of things that can be done for this, including critting. Critting is one of the most common comps that you guys would have seen in the past from the JP server for how they handled this. There are other ways of doing it. But again, I did want to sort of highlight this because there's a couple of things you guys can do to make your critting super consistent. The first part of that is that, again, the first 2 enemies here are both demonic. Therefore, you can actually use an anti-demonic command code to make your cards better. There is a 1-star command code out there that everybody should have that you guys can put on all of your cards for those units. Or again, you can put even more robust command codes on if you want. Do remember too, this will be after Annie 5 here, where we do get the change to move your command codes around a lot easier, pretty much at will without having to use command code removers. So again, command codes are a very easy solution to this. And again, last but certainly not least, if you guys want to see a breakdown for kind of how to approach 90 versus 90 plus and which one's better for you, go check out the first video in this series on the round 1 comps. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of that video exhaustively covering the differences between the 2. Just understand the big thing that you guys are going to be focused on is the currency, the actual Lotto currency for your boxes. And that's typically the same in both of those. No matter what data you may find out there, it should be the same. It's probably just that, again, the data maybe is off by a decimal or 2 because we didn't have the same number of runs on each node. Typically, the 90 plus nodes approached the actual average, whereas the 90 nodes might not have been run as much and recorded as much, so they might not approach that average. But still, just keep that in mind. The nodes should be relatively the same, and you guys will actually find there are a couple of very fast comps for the 90 plus in this round. Okay guys, so let's talk about the nodes here. So again, this is going to be the 3rd term, aka round 3. Again, this is going to be your hero node, your 90 node, and as you guys can see, it's going to be broken down basically a 3-3x node setup, so this is really good for looping. The problem here is going to be this is a mixture of berserkers and sabers, and it's predominantly berserkers, so that's going to hurt refund a little bit in this round. It's certainly not that hard to do. Again, you guys will see we have quite a bit of comps for this, but obviously that is going to be something you'll need to take into consideration. Damage won't necessarily be the issue here so much as your refund. Again, for our drops in the node, you guys are going to get giant rings and LB3's reactor cords. Those are pretty good, pretty hard to get your hands on otherwise, and you probably guys are going to need a lot of those for your appends. As we switch to the 90 plus node, again, you guys can see what's going on here. We basically have 2 demonic enemies here for the first 2 waves. Like I said, they're pretty easy to exploit thanks to that trait, and there are plenty of units that are going to work well against it. But keeping that in mind, at only 69k for a berserker, like I said, that's where there's a lot of crit comps, especially with those command codes that are going to really help you out in being able to tackle this relatively easily. And then the real problem is probably going to occur here on the final wave for a lot of people, especially if you don't have a good AoE saber. But again, like I said, I think we have a comp for you guys that should work. Just pay attention, as I will in each of the comps sort of explain some of the alternatives. So while it might not be apparent on the faceplate of the comp, I will talk about each one, so you guys might want to pay extra attention in this video. For your actual drops here, you're going to get hearts and stakes. Hearts are an aging mat where they've been in the game from the very beginning, and they used to be everybody's kryptonite, but now a lot of the more veteran players basically don't need them anymore. So again, it's just up to you guys to determine how badly you need hearts. You newer players will still probably want a ton of them. But stakes are definitely something that they're a newer bronze mat to the game, but the append system actually vastly increased them. They're one of the most increased mats due to the append system. So getting more stakes here will definitely be good for a lot of people. And then again, like you guys can see, the 90+ node not only has the same currency, but it's also going to have the shop currency. This will allow you guys to either complete the shop on this round, or again, if you guys have extra, be able to convert that into more QP to help out your, append system and stuff like that. But yes, that's going to be your big considerations for these nodes. Just watch out. Again, like you guys can see here, there's going to be a lot of critting. There's going to be a lot of full chargers used here and stuff in order to try and handle each of these waves. All right, so let's start out with our 90 node comps here. And again, this is going to be something where we tried to make it as approachable as possible. We had a couple options here of requiring a K scope, potentially dropping waiver and stuff like that, but due to all the berserkers here, Fragment of 2004 comps don't work as well. So again, we decided to go any 50% C. So this can even be something like Dragon's Meridian. We basically just backed it out. And so while yes, we do require double Scotty and waiver, that's going to mean a Scotty of your own and a waiver of your own right here. That is going to be a problem. But again, we did feel like, at least for a lot of people that have been playing and maybe don't get Castoria, this would be an approachable comp for you. So again, it is 5C, it is going to be using Plugsuit, but it is only an NP1 Dantes because he's going to handle those berserkers relatively easily. And again, as you guys can see, your only concern is actually going to come on Fergus in the final wave there, him being a saber, leaving about 17k, but that should be easily doable, especially since Dantes is going to be applying a defense down to his enemies. So again, nothing too bad here. Don't worry too much about the refund here, as again, this never shows the Avenger passive. This is just his natural refund. So he'll still get his passive that will tick him over the 50% that you need in order for your charge. So again, let's talk. For your party composition here, let's go ahead and start out with a front line of Scotty, Dantes, and Waiver with the other Scotty on the back line. All right, now here on turn 1, let's go ahead and activate all Waiver skills on Dantes. That should bring him up to full charge. From there, go ahead and Plugsuit out that Waiver for the other Scotty in your back line. Now here, go ahead and use both Scotty skill 1s on Dantes. That should get him all the quick up he needs. And then use Dantes' skill 2, and that should make him ready to NP. Go ahead and fire off that NP and you'll easily handle the first wave. Now here on turn 2, go ahead and use Scotty's skill 2 and Scotty's skill 3 on Dantes, and that should bring him up to full charge. And then go ahead and fire off the NP one more time, and he should easily handle the mobile tank here. And now here in the final wave, go ahead and use another Scotty skill 2 and then the skill 3 on Dantes. And then from there, go ahead and pop your Plugsuit attack buff, as well as Dantes' first skill to get him that extra damage, and fire the NP one last time. Just remember, Fergus will live most of the time and up to 17k HP remaining, so just make sure you choose good cards. All right, this next comp is going to be another 5CE using a Plugsuit involving Zerkerlot, aka Berserker Lancelot here. So again, we did have to stretch this one to NP2 just to make it clean, but if you have NP1, you might be able to manage. Just be careful, you're probably going to leave a lot more health remaining. It is having your own Scotty and Waiver here, as well as a support Scotty, so that's going to be another hard requirement here, as well as a K-scope. You guys can see this is just sort of the difference of trying to take a Berserker against other Berserkers, rather than say taking someone like Dantes, who just is an extra class and actually deals a lot more effective damage against the Berserker. The other cool part about this is just like our old school Zerkerlot comps here, where you guys are actually going to kind of flip-flop what you would think would be the conventional order of operations here, and this will allow us to refund precisely the amounts that we need. It's relatively automated, relatively unfailable due to this, and so this is going to make it pretty nice. As long as you have NP2, as long as you have the K-scope, you're not going to have any health remaining, so nothing to worry about in that regard. All right, for your party structure, I want you guys to start out with a front line of Scotty, Zerkerlot, Waver, and then the other Scotty on the back line. All right, now for your turn order here on turn 1, let's go ahead and use the first Scotty's skill 1 on Zerkerlot. From there, go ahead and pop Waver's skills 2 and 3 on Zerkerlot to get him to full charge, and fire the NP already. Again, he'll easily handle the front wave and refund about 20%. And here on turn 2, go ahead and use the Scotty skill 3 on Zerkerlot to bring him up. Go ahead and use Waver's skill 1 now on Zerkerlot. That'll get him to 100% charge. And then go ahead and Plugsuit out that Waver for the other Scotty. From here, use her skill 1 on Zerkerlot, and then pop Zerkerlot's skill 3 for his extra refund, and then fire the NP one more time. He'll easily handle the mobile tank. Now here in turn 3, let's go ahead and use Scotty's remaining skill 2s, and then go ahead and pop the skill 3 on Zerkerlot, and basically you guys should be able to use the Plugsuit attack buff at this point, and he should be ready to do one more last NP where he'll easily handle Fergus and Kualter. And now here we have an Atalante variant of the same comp, so it's going to be another K-scope required comp. We are going to be using NP2 as Kualter still lives with NP2. We are going to be using double Scotty here. The twist is we're using Helena instead of Waver. And the reason for this is because Helena just seems to have a very unique interaction with Atalante. It's almost like they should have given Atalante a better trait to enhance her quick by just a little bit more, because literally getting the 20% charge from Helena as well as the extra quick from Helena's third skill is all Atalante needs to kind of boost her ability to loot. Without Helena, Atalante was refunding about like 46-47% here. With it, all of a sudden it tripped her over to 50% for the first 2 waves, and that's exactly what she needed. So again, she's going to function perfectly in conjunction with that K-scope, and this should mean that you basically just need to have your own Scotty and Helena here instead of that. But don't fret if you don't have a Helena. You can use something like Nero Bride, or again, you could try to do Waver, but obviously then you might struggle at certain points in terms of the refund. So just pay attention to how you would pop the skills in that set. This is going to be a 5C with Plugsuit, nothing too much to write home about, so some of you might want to do this, some of you might not. Right now here for the party structure, let's start out with a front line of Scotty, Atalante, Helena, and then the other Scotty in the back line. Right now here on turn 1, let's go ahead and pop Atalanta's skill 3 for the extra NP gen. Go ahead and use Helena's skills 1 and 3. That should get her the charge to 100% as well as the quick up. And then Plugsuit out that Helena for Scotty. From here, go ahead and use both Scotty's skill 1s on Atalante, and you should be good to fire that first NP. Now here on turn 2, let's go ahead and use Scotty's skill 2, and then go ahead and use the skill 3 on Atalante. From here, go ahead and fire off the NP from Atalante one more time, and you should be solid. Now here in turn 3, let's go ahead and pop the last remaining Scotty skill 2, as well as the skill 3 on Atalante again, and then go ahead and use your Plugsuit attack buff, as well as Atalanta's first skill finally. From here, you're good to NP one last time, with Kualter living about 22% of the time with at most 7.6k HP. Alright, next we have a Buster variant of our 5C Plugsuit comp. Again, we tried to provide you guys as many 5C versions as we could for those of you guys that maybe don't have the most robust of loadouts. But again, this one's a little bit more plug and play like we were talking about at the beginning of the video. Yeah, we're going to be using an NP1 Nito to handle the front wave, but we used Gilgamesh here as an example with any 50% C and a maxed append. You could, however, get away with several other options here. Again, an NP2 Napoleon would work with about 30k remaining on the final wave. An NP2 Ishtar would work with 8k remaining on the final wave. An NP2 Arjuna would work with 37k remaining on the final wave. And even an NP2 Tesla can work with about 10k remaining on the final wave. So this is definitely a little bit more approachable. Again, you guys can use whatever archer you think works here. And we also did this here with the supports where we staggered them. A lot of you guys might be sitting here going, wait, why is Castoria in this comp? She's not at all remotely helpful to this. Well, she is from charge perspective, but we basically displayed the 2 worst possible support combinations that we could that still would give you enough charge to complete it. So you guys can do Scotty, you can do Reigns, just understand there are other people that work with this. But yes, we used Castoria and Waver to give you guys the least amount of damage calculations on this possible. And what that allows you to do is if you have one of them but not the other, you can take the other on support. So this will allow you guys to have a very malleable mix and match comp depending on which pieces of the comp you have. Again, we try to do this whenever possible, and you guys are going to see this isn't going to be the last comp we do this with. There are going to be plenty of other people here that we try to make it work, where each one of the pieces is a different, so that there is no double up, so that you're not restricted to having to have the one unit. So again, pretty doable here though with the NP1 Gilgamesh and the maxed append. Just keep that in mind. Obviously, you might have to have appends unlocked for some of your options. But still, I think if you guys look here, it's pretty good, at least for a 5C. Unfortunately, that is what we had to do. This is just sort of the nature of Buster for right now until, you know, we get a year more into the future and we start being able to talk about Koyanskaya and Oberon. But still, this is going to be a pretty easy one for a lot of people. All right, so for your party structure, I want you to start out with a front line of Nito, Gilgamesh, and Castoria, with Waver on the back line. All right, now here on turn 1, just go ahead and pop Nito skill 2, charge her to full, and NP. She'll easily handle the first wave. All right, now here on turn 2, I want you guys to go ahead and Plugsuit out that Nito for the Waver in the back line. Now go ahead and use Gilgamesh's skill 1, that's his charisma, as well as Castoria's skill 1, and that should bring him up to full. Go ahead and fire off the Gilgamesh NP at this point, and he should be good. Now here in turn 3, go ahead and use Castoria's skill 2 on Gil, and then go ahead and use all the Waver skills on Gil. This should now be used in conjunction with Gil's skill 3, and that will bring him up to full. And then go ahead and pop the Plugsuit attack buff here right at the end and fire off his NP one last time with him easily handling both Fergus and Kualter. All right, now continuing along with the Buster theme here. Again, you guys are going to see our first 6CE comp, and it's going to be utilizing Arash and Gong. You guys may have seen a similar comp to this in the prior rounds, and it's basically going to work the same thing. Keep in mind the drop C has guts on it. That's the big annoying factor about trying to use either Arash or Gong here. So what this comp does is it exploits the fact that, well, we can only guts one time. Therefore, we're going to actually allow Arash to get his guts procced by Gong, and then allow Arash to kill himself, which will rotate the party here. That's sort of the geniusness of this, and the fact that it can all be done at 6CE is really good. The biggest problem for this is, yeah, you're going to have your own Castoria and your own Waver in order to make this work. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be this setup. You might be able to work in a Reigns at times, but just keep in mind that is going to be one of the requirements. Again, though, the fact that it is 6CE should make this doable, and you guys can see, even without Grails, we do not leave any remaining health, and that is going to be because of the fact that our low stars in this event get a very, very nice damage bonus added to them. So that is going to allow them to punch well above their weight. All right, now for our party structure, remember guys, it really matters here in a Gong comp. So you're going to want to start out the front line of Arash, Gong, Castoria, then in your back line, Waver and Castoria. That's going to make this doable with the Plugsuit combinations if you follow our turn order directly. Right here now on turn 1, let's go ahead and utilize all the first Castoria skills on Gong. That should bring him up to 50% and give him that arts up. Go ahead and Plugsuit for that Castoria in the 5th slot, bring her in, and activate all of her skills on Gong. That should allow her to then bring him up to full, and then fire off your Gong NP, and you should be good. All right, now here in turn 2, you're going to go ahead and use Arash's skill 3, as well as Gong's skill 2. That should bring Arash to full. Go ahead and use Gong's skill 3 as well on Arash, and then fire off the Arash NP. He should easily handle the wave, and he will die in the process, rotating the party. Now here in turn 3, your Waver should have come in, so go ahead and use all your Waver skills on Gong, and from there use the Plugsuit attack buff and fire off the Gong NP one last time, and you'll easily handle even wave 3. All right, next up here, guys, we've got a 6 CE comp with Arctic Mystic Code involving JArcher. The good news here is we don't even require Arctic to be leveled at all. Secondly, don't be afraid of this 99%. Little known fact, but this was patched out of the game a long time ago. If you guys ever get exactly 99% refund, it still rounds up. And that is exactly what she gets. She doesn't get 99.01. She doesn't get 89.99. She gets exactly 99. The good news here, though, is none of this matters because JArcher has a passive that gives her 3% charge per turn. That's not included here, and she'll just always refund over 100%. Also, we don't activate JArcher's skill 2 until turn 3 here. You guys can activate it on turn 1 if you want. It will improve the numbers. We just didn't for whatever reason. So again, you might be able to make this work at NP1. Just be careful with that. But this should be a relatively approachable comp for a lot of people other than the NP requirement here on JArcher and other than the double Castoria. Again, this should be relatively fast and easy. All right, since our party structure is relatively obvious, since we're not using Plugsuit, let's just go ahead and talk turn order here. So here on turn 1, I want you guys to go ahead and activate JArcher's skill 1 and 3. From there, go ahead and use all of Castoria's skills on JArcher, both of them combined on JArcher, just to get her up to full, get her all that arts up and NP gain, then fire off your JArcher NP. All right, now here on turn 2, she refunded back to full, just fire the NP again. And now on turn 3, just make sure you guys activate your Mystic Code's damage buff on JArcher, and you should be solid to easily handle this wave. Again, with only Alter living with about 15% of the time with around 5k HP at most. All right, next up here, this one is going to be using Plugsuit. It's going to be requiring your own Castoria and your own Waver, as well as a support Castoria, but we're going to be using Musashi Berserker in P2. And again, it should be relatively easy in terms of capability. As you guys can see, no health remaining here, so this one is going to be very fast, very efficient in terms of both drop CE as well as not having to card, so your time is going to be very quick. The Plugsuit is going to be the major concern, but again, it is possible we get skill speed up here at Anniversary. We'll just have to wait and see. Your refund numbers are nothing too shabby here. This should be easily handleable by the Plugsuit waiver, so don't fret that. And again, we are just using a normal drop C, not even MLB here. Right here, for our party structure, I want you guys to start out with a front line of Musashi Berserker, Castoria, and Castoria, with waiver on the back line. Right now here on turn 1, go ahead and activate Musashi's skill 2. That should be her NP gen skill. Then go ahead and use all of one of the Castoria's skills on Musashi. Once that's done, she should be brought up to 50%. Go ahead and Plugsuit her out for the waiver, and then go ahead and use all of the other Castoria skills now on Musashi. That should bring her up to full charge, and then go ahead and fire off the NP. Now here on turn 2, again, she should have refunded about 80%, so go ahead and use waiver skill 2 and 3 to bring Musashi back to full one more time, and then fire off the NP. Now finally here on turn 3, go ahead and use waiver skill 1 on Musashi to bring her back to full once more. Use the Plugsuit attack buff, and go ahead and use Musashi skill 3 as well at this point to get her all the damage that she needs. Fire off the NP one last time, and again at NP2 she'll easily handle both Fergus and Alter. Alright, and now we've got another easy 6 CE comp. This one's going to be only utilizing an NP1 Space Ishtar. You guys might be remembering the prior comp there was using an NP2 Musashi Berserker, so now the shoe is on the other foot. Basically, because we're facing Berserkers, Musashi Berserker is not as good of an option versus Space Ishtar being a better option here, since she normally isn't effective and is normally only neutral damage. So again, she's going to work out here even just at NP1. The harsh requirement here is going to be having your own Castoria and your own waiver, but again, as long as you guys have that, this should be relatively easy. You're going to leave about 9k here on the mobile tank and about 900, almost 1,000 here on Fergus. But remember, we always calculate these comps with a assumed failure on Space Ishtar's third skill to proc the arts up. So that's why occasionally you guys are going to lose out on a little bit of damage here. This will happen about 20% of the time for some of you. Just keep that in mind that, yeah, it's not going to be something you'll encounter every time, but this sort of thing can affect refund, it can affect damage, and that's why we calculate it with the failure being assumed. again, for something like the 90 node here against berserkers, not too shabby, but something like the 90 plus nodes against neutral enemies, that starts getting a lot hairier, and that's kind of why you guys end up seeing higher NP levels sometimes on Space Ishtar. All right, so for our party structure here, it's going to work just like the Musashi Berserker comp. You guys are going to start out with, again, a front line of Space Ishtar, Castoria, and Castoria with the other Waver on the back line. Right now here on turn 1, go ahead and utilize all of one of the Castoria skills on Space Ishtar. At that point, go ahead and Plugsuit that one out for Waver, and then go ahead and utilize all of the other Castoria skills on Space Ishtar. That should bring her up to full. Go ahead from there and activate Space Ishtar's skill 1, that's her charisma, and fire off your first NP. Now here in turn 2, go ahead and use Waver's skill 1 and skill 3 to bring her up to full and fire off the Space Ishtar NP again. Now here in turn 3, go ahead and utilize the Plugsuit attack buff, Space Ishtar's second skill, make sure you select arts, and then Space Ishtar's third skill, that should be your charge skill again with the additional arts up proc. And then fire off the NP one last time, and you should be good, easily handling the wave if you got the proc, at worst leaving Fergus with 1000 damage if you didn't. But wait, was that last comp not fast enough for you? Good, yes, we prepared for you guys a higher requirement, but much more efficient in terms of capability here comp that should work for a lot of you as well. So this one's going to be utilizing Tropical Summer. It is going to be 6 CE, and it's not going to require the Plugsuit, and it's going to work out a lot more fast, a lot better. That way you guys are a lot more capable of just kind of blitzing through this and not having to worry about having a third support or anything like that. So again, the big problem here is going to be having an NP2 Space Ishtar, actually having the Tropical Summer Mystic code from Summer 3 and its rerun, and then again having your own Castoria. But as long as you have that, boom, this is going to be a fast and an easy comp for you. Again, no max health remaining at all on this at NP2, so that's why this is going to be so nice. All right, your party structure here is going to be obvious, so I'm not going to bother dealing with that, but the turn order will not. So here on turn 1, let's go ahead and activate Space Ishtar's skill 1 and skill 3 now. From here, go ahead and activate both of the Castoria's skill 2 and 3 on Space Ishtar, just not the skill 1. And then go ahead and use the Mystic Code's skill 3 here on Space Ishtar, and that should bring her up to full. From here, go ahead and NP with Space Ishtar, and you should be good. Now here on turn 2, go ahead and activate Castoria's skill 1. That should bring her up to full charge again and fire off the NP one more time. Now here in turn 3, go ahead and activate the last remaining Castoria skill 1, the Mystic Code attack buff on Space Ishtar, as well as Space Ishtar's second skill. Again, make sure you choose arts, and you should be good. All right, welcome to 90 plus nodes now, Master. This is going to be, again, where we're going to start encountering the Yorokobe Shonen crit comps, as this is just going to be what you guys are going to have to do to get through some of this if you don't want to have to NP. So just so you guys understand this, again, there are going to be crit stars available due to the nature of the units that we use and their skills. Even though the craft essence doesn't actually have any crit star bomb or stars per turn on it, we're going to get it all from either Mystic Codes or, again, skills. So this is going to be something that's going to be relatively doable for a lot of you guys. You guys can use, in place of Hokusaber in this comp, a Lancelot saber. That does work as well, even at NP1. It should clear the demon in wave 2. Again, you guys can actually see here, Hokusaber is absolute overkill on the demon there. And what we've tried to do to make this comp super approachable, because again, it is 6 CE, we staggered the supports, so you guys don't have to have any one of the units. You guys can basically mix and match. You can literally go, hey, I have Hokusaber, I have Artoria, and I have Waver, but I don't have Castoria. I can just take one on support. Or maybe you go, I don't have a Waver, and you can take a Waver. Maybe you go, I don't have an Artoria, but I do have the supports in the Hokusaber. You can take an Artoria. So this makes it very malleable, very mix and matchable, and that's kind of why we tried to go with this. This should be the most approachable comp for this, other than maybe one other. Keep in mind, this is why we're kind of emphasizing the 90 plus for this round. It's that easy. Most of you guys should be able to do it. Now here's the problem with this. You're going to need an NP2 Artoria, at least if you want to be able to handle this well. She's only going to leave about 7.5k against Canis at worst. The problem that your guys are going to have is if you try to step this down to NP1, she's going to leave around 50k, I believe the number was, on Canis. Can you do that? Yes. With Artoria's Dragon Core, you will be able to change all of her cards to Buster. And so if you get any Artoria cards, that's going to allow you to solve that. The problem is you might not get Artoria cards, or maybe you don't get enough. Maybe you just get the one and that's it, and maybe the rest are all like, say, the Castoria's cards instead. That's going to be a little bit of a problem for you guys then, and you're not going to necessarily be able to mop up Canis. The problem with that is if you see that coming, you might want to use your Plugsuit stun buff. That's going to at least allow you to kind of lock down Canis then and make it so that she can't pop her guts, because that's going to be your real concern there, is that Canis lives, pops the guts, and then you're just screwed. So that's going to be something you guys are going to have to pay attention to if you're trying to get away with just an NP1 Artoria. But otherwise, again, this comp should be relatively easy and should work. Just make sure you guys choose good cards. Try to lead with your Buster cards, and remember the tip I said at the beginning of the video. You guys can use command codes, especially anti-demonic command codes, to help you guys in carding out and critting out the Elder Ghoul here. At only 70k, that's not too bad. You guys should be able to, again, card that down with relative ease. Just keep in mind, if you guys get a bad card loadout, you may want to kick it to turn 2 instead of trying to get it all done in turn 1. So pay attention to the cards that you get right there on turn 1. If you don't like what you see, maybe wait a turn and then activate your skills. Keep in mind too here, guys, you guys can probably substitute the Artoria for other AoE sabers as long as you guys have, again, someone that can deal a damage equivalent and still get the same charge equivalent. I'll actually talk about that in one of the later comps because we didn't necessarily run all the numbers for this one. All right, now for the party structure here, you guys are going to want to start out with a front line of Saber Hokusai as well as OG Artoria Saber here. And then you guys are going to want to start out with Waver there as well in the last slot, as well as Castoria on the back line. All right, now here on turn 1, go ahead and use all the Waver skills on Hokusai. From there, go ahead and Plugsuit him out to bring in the other Castoria. From here, let's go ahead and use Castoria's skill 1 and 2 on Artoria, and then use skill 3 on Hokusai. And then we're going to go ahead and pop Artoria's skill 1 and skill 3, as well as Hokusai's skill 1 and skill 3. From there, crit the enemy to death. Hopefully you guys made it and you got good cards. Now here in turn 2, just go ahead and NP with Hokusai on the demon. You'll easily slaughter it, overkilling him by almost 4 times his amount of health. And now here in turn 3, go ahead and utilize the Artoria skill 2, her Dragon Core, use the Plugsuit attack buff, and then just fire off the NP one last time, hopefully killing Canis, but with her living about 20% of the time with at most 7.5k HP. Just remember, choose good cards, especially if you're trying to get away with less of an NP level. Next up, we've got a really interesting comp for you guys. It is going to be 6E, but we're going to be using the New Year's Mystic code instead of Plugsuit. We also calculated it with Castoria because, again, it was the worst possible support that we could use, and that's why. It has nothing to do with actual refund or damage output. It's more the charge than anything else. You will be required to have a 10% append on Artoria with Castoria. Otherwise, if you're trying to get away with a different support, you might have to use a maxed mana loading on Artoria in order to make this work. Again, due to the fact that we're using the New Year's Mystic code at rank 10, you guys should have 40 stars available for this, but we're only requiring an NP1 Voyager and, again, an NP2 Artoria. Voyager actually has trade advantage over the demon, and that's why even at NP1 he's able to work here, only leaving about 9k remaining HP. Your problem is going to come here in the form of Artoria here at NP2 on wave 3 against Canis. It should be easily cardable if you get a singular Artoria card. If you don't, you might have a little bit of trouble, but otherwise, again, if you find yourself in that situation, just be prepared to maybe end up in a 4 or a 5 turn. Now again though, you can certainly beef up the amount of Artoria that you get here, or you could try to use a different NP level of someone else. Just keep in mind this is going to be hard since we are sort of showing you guys an NP2 Artoria, not an NP1. Definitely some other units are not going to be as pluggable in here as you might think. but still this should be doable. I think the real problem is going to be the charge situation and actually being able to get 40% charge from someone when using Castoria, or again 50% when not. There's only a couple of our AoE sabers in the moment, or in the game at the moment, that can do that. And again, some people will ask about JArcher. Just keep in mind, if you use JArcher, you're not getting as many crit stars for this. Again, because we're not using a second support even at all, the party structure here should be obvious. So for our turn order here, on turn 1, go ahead and activate Voyager's skill 1 and then skill 3 on Artoria, and then go ahead and use Castoria's skill 1 and skill 2 on Voyager. From here, use Artoria's skill 1 and skill 3 herself, and then go ahead and use the Mystic Code skill 2 on Artoria to bring her up to full charge, and then crit the enemy to death. Hopefully you got good cards, try to lead with Buster, and you should be good. Turn 2 here, go ahead and utilize Voyager's skill 2 now to put the quick down on the demon, and then fire off the NP with it dying about half the time. The other half, it'll live with at most 9k remaining HP. Now here in turn 3, go ahead and use Artoria's skill 2, that's her Dragon Core, and then go ahead and use the Mystic Code's damage buff on Artoria and fire off the NP. Just be careful, choose good cards here, because even at NP2, Canis is going to live just about every single time, and again with up to 32k HP remaining. Alright, our next up comp here is going to be 6 CE with the Plugsuit, and we're going to be using Lancelot Saber and Tomoe Saber. I've actually heard of a lot of people complaining here lately, oh, I don't have a good AoE Saber, how am I going to handle these nodes? Well, Tomoe Saber is going to be coming in Summer 5 before Shishoufest. So if you guys get at least an NP2 of her, you would probably be able to run this comp. Again, this does require Lancelot Saber. He's got 30% charge and he's got a maxed append for this, but we are doing this so that you guys can use Castoria and Waver and sort of mix and match the support that you take from your friend. If you were to run double Castoria, you guys can actually instead drop this 20% append to just an unlocked level 1 append, and that would actually save you a little bit of investment here. Again, it's not too shabby as we're only requiring a Lancelot Saber of 1 copy, but again, the reason that we're doing this here instead of Hokusaber's only got the 20% charge to his 30%, so that is going to be a bit of an issue. You actually don't need to have his skill here at rank 10. His charge does not scale, but what it does give you is stars, so if you guys want the maximum amount of stars on the right units at the right time, that's where this is going to again help you guys to have it. So our official recommendation is rank 10, but you don't have to have it at rank 10. This is going to involve you guys critting down the first wave. This is going to be a little bit more difficult in this comp because there's so many arts cards flying around, so it's going to be harder to find a Buster card to lead with. But considering you do have a Castoria, someone will have the arts up, you can probably get away as long as you still get the cards. And again, both of these sabers actually have pretty good crit modifiers, so you guys should be able to card down the Elder Ghoul. Again, remember, if you guys are worried about that sort of thing, go ahead and equip your units with the demonic command codes. Again, there is a 1-star one that you guys can put on everyone that gives 5% extra damage against the demonic enemy, and that could tip you guys over the threshold needed to actually card this guy down. Again, it's just a way of making it more safe, sort of stretching your options and making it so that you don't get screwed by the cards nearly as often. And again, it should work for most of you. The problem here, as you guys can see, is if you look at our damage requirements, yes, that's going to be a little bit spicy there against Canis at 54k with an NP2 Saber Tomoe. But again, if you do have double Castoria, this can actually get better for you, and she'll leave about 30k instead with that. So again, the benefit here to having your own Castoria is you can run double Castoria, reduce the append requirement on Lancelot Saber, and actually get more damage here against Canis outright, since she would be able to have more damage capability. But the reason we're okay recommending this number is Tomoe Saber has 100% crit damage that can actually be utilized very effectively here. And if you guys have ever used her, she does crit quite hard against stuff, and she will be getting stars per turn, as will Lancelot Saber, so you won't be bereft of stars on the final turn. This should actually be a relatively doable thing, but certainly if you wanted to make this more consistent, you could try to get a higher NP level of Saber Tomoe. But otherwise, not too shabby here. You actually probably don't need MLB of the Drop C on either of these two. It's just we kind of assumed it being round 3. But again, that C only is going to give you Buster Up, so not really required for their NP damage. All right, so for our party structure, I want you guys to start out with a front line of Lancelot Saber, Tomoe Saber, Castoria, and then Waver on the back line. Right here on turn 1, let's go ahead and use all the Castoria skills on Saber Tomoe. From there, go ahead and Plugsuit that Castoria out for Waver. For here, go ahead and use Waver's skill 3, and then let's go ahead and activate Tomoe's skill 1 and skill 3. That should get her the Star Bomb and the crit damage. Go ahead and activate Lancelot's skill 1 and skill 3. That should get him his charge as well. And then go ahead and crit the enemy down. You should have 45 stars available, and like I said, if you're using the anti-demonic command codes, this should be even easier. Now here on turn 2, go ahead and use Waver skill 1 on Saber Tomoe. Go ahead and use the skill 2 as well for Waver, and that should bring everybody up to full. And now you can NP with Lancelot Saber, and he should, even at NP 1, easily handle the demon in this wave. Now here on turn 3, let's go ahead and activate Saber Tomoe's skill 2, that's her arts up, and then give her the Plugsuit attack buff and fire off the NP. Just make sure you try to choose Brave Chains with her, or again, her or Lancelot's cards, so that you guys can crit as much as you possibly can against Canis if you're trying to make do with that NP2. But again, with that amount of crit damage, she should be easily able to handle it with any sort of Buster or Arts card. Just remember, you might want to lead with Buster, or again, follow up the NP with other Arts cards here in order to get the maximal damage. All right, now for something a little bit different. So this is going to be 6C Plugsuit. It's still going to be critting down the first wave here, but it's going to be using Summer Murasaki, who's a rider, and Summer Kiara, who's a moon cancer. Now, a lot of you guys might be going, what the heck? And understand, so was I when I first saw this, but it makes perfect sense. If you guys have ever used Summer Murasaki, you're going to already have an idea of how this is going to work. So we are going to be using double Castoria here. Again, that is going to be sort of a hard requirement, and we are going to require NP2 of Summer Murasaki, but both of these are summer units. So all 3 of the units used in this comp can be rolled for before Shishoufest. Again, this is a big reason why we're trying to get you guys these guides early, so you guys have time to do something about it if you so choose. So again, everything here is on the table for you guys to go after. And again, as you guys can see, NP2 Rider Murasaki only leaves 3.7k here, but there's a little bit of a trick that I'm going to explain in a second. Summer Kiara, even just at NP1, is only going to leave about 4.6k on Canis. Now, if you guys know how Summer Kiara works, her third skill stacks basically a effect on the enemy that allows her NP to deal more damage. The problem is it's treated as a debuff, and Canis has debuff resistance. So what do you do when that fails? You see, that would actually tank Summer Kiara's damage significantly. That's where the trick comes into play. Summer Murasaki is often regarded as actually a very good debuffing unit because she has the ability to lower a unit's debuff resistance. And she can actually do it so effectively with her skills max that she can practically eliminate the ability for someone to resist debuffs. So you're actually not going to use it against the demon here in wave 2 because she doesn't need it. Instead, you're going to be using it on Canis in wave 3 to make sure she can't resist Summer Kiara's stacks. That's going to make this relatively consistent and very nice for people. This is going to make this a super doable comp. And again, like I said, the fact that you guys are able to roll everything in this comp still is going to be really nice. So if you guys have no other solution, this is here. This probably will require some whaling. Keep that in mind. Summer Murasaki and Summer Kiara are not on the same summer banner. They are on opposite banners there, but this is an option for you. All right, so for your party structure, you're going to start out with Murasaki Summer, you're going to start out with Kiara Summer, and Castoria on your front line. From there, you're going to do Castoria on the back line as well. All right, now here on turn 1, go ahead and utilize the first Castoria's skill 1 and skill 2 on Murasaki Rider, and then go ahead and use the skill 3 on Kiara Summer. Plugsuit that Castoria out for the other Castoria, and then use all of that Castoria's skills on Summer Kiara. From here, go ahead and use Murasaki's skill 3, that's her charge per turn and Star Bomb, and go ahead and utilize Summer Kiara's skill 1 and skill 2 here. This is going to get her charge without using any of the stacks. From there, go ahead and crit the enemy to death, and again, you should be able to handle it. Just remember, you can use demonic command codes if that'll help you. Now here in turn 2, you should be good to go ahead and just NP with Murasaki, thanks to the fact that she got her charge per turn there. So again, she'll easily handle the demon without any of her buffs here, and again, you shouldn't have too much to worry about. Now in turn 3 here, go ahead and utilize Murasaki's skill 2 first on Canis, and then go ahead and use her skill 1. From there, go ahead and activate Kiara's skill 3, use the Plugsuit attack buff, and you should be good to NP with Kiara, and she should land all 3 of her stacks and easily handle Canis even at NP1. And now for the reason this video is so short. Guys, we've got a 6 CE Plugsuit comp that alternates supports between Castoria and Waver, so you can pick whichever one you're missing. It's gonna use Medea and Artoria. Again, this means that all 4 of the units in this comp are different, so if you have any 3 of the unit combinations, you can take the Artoria, the Castoria, or the Waver on your friend's support. And that should make this, again, super approachable. The best part here is you might be thinking, well, Cad, critting the first wave does have some RNG, but it's super fast. Guess what? Medea's NP is also super fast. It's one of the fastest ones in the game. You guys can just sit there, have her go rule a breaker and just stab. So that's why this is going to work really well here. She's going to NP twice in a row. The turn order here is not going to be exactly as you guys think, so pay attention to that. And actually, due to the fact that we have 9% charge here, we can make certain things work. So again, this is going to be a very, very nice and approachable comp. We did assume MLB of the drop C because again, this is round 3 of the 90 plus. So we assume at this point you guys have it. If you don't worry too much because an NP2 Artoria clean kills Canis 100% of the time with the MLB drop C. If you drop that to non-MLB, yeah, you might be a little bit closer to not clean killing, but it should still work. Similarly, if you tried to get away with just NP1, it might also work. You just might leave some health and you might have to card. But thanks to Artoria's Dragon Core skill, you should be able to get that job done as long as you get those cards. Any Artoria cards will help you solve that. Just be careful. Now, the next thing to say about this comp is, but Cad, I don't have Artoria. Can I substitute other people? Yes, you can. So your Artoria can be swapped with an NP3 Mordred, that'll leave 27k remaining, an NP3 Salter, that'll leave 27k remaining, an NP4 Arthur, that'll leave 29k remaining, an NP5 Gawain, that'll leave 38k remaining. I don't recommend that. You had NP2 Suzuka, it left 22k HP remaining. An NP3 Arjuna Alter, which will leave 25k remaining, or any AoE saber with 20% charge, including the mana loading, will work, but your damage might suffer, so just keep that in mind. Again, if you have higher NP levels than what we just stated for any of those, good for you. You have a comp that works here. Like I said, the fact that we had this as sort of this plug and play comp with so many interchangeable parts, and it was so easily approachable for just about everyone, that's why we didn't bother to do more comps for this round. This is why this round is the easiest. Even if you don't have the best, most meta AoE saber, there's still people like Arjuna Alter that can work, and there are still, again, higher NP levels of like 4 stars and stuff that can work for this. So we thought this was a very good comp, and it's why we didn't go too hard trying to recommend something else. All right, for your party structure, you're going to want to start out with Medea, Artoria, or your other AoE saber, Castoria, and then Waver in the back line. All right, now here on turn 1, let's go ahead and activate Medea's first skill, charge her up to full there, activate Artoria's first skill, and then go ahead and use the Castoria skill 3 on Medea. From here, fire off Medea's NP and she'll easily handle the Elder Ghoul. In turn 2 here, go ahead and utilize Castoria's skill 1 and then skill 2 on Medea, and then go ahead and Plugsuit out the Castoria for Waver. From here, go ahead and utilize Waver's skill 1 on your AoE Saber, and then go ahead and utilize skill 2 and skill 3 from Waver. Fire off the Medea NP one more time, and she'll easily handle the demon here. Now in turn 3, go ahead and utilize Artoria's skill 2 and skill 3 to bring her up to full charge and give her the damage she needs, and then activate your Plugsuit attack buff and NP. Again, if you're using NP2 or Artoria, you'll easily handle this. If you're using some sort of other Saber alternate, this should still work as long as you have the NP levels that we stated earlier. All right, and last but certainly not least, the Trio Castoria comp, aka the comp that I told the math people if they didn't come up with, they were fired. I'm just kidding. But regardless, this is an interesting comp. It's more of a proof of concept than anything else. You guys do have to have a maxed append on both Buntoria and Artoria, and you do need NP2 of both. And we're only getting 25 crit stars because we're just assuming a rank 6 mystic code for the New Year's. The good news is, again, we're only having to use one support, so this is a little bit similar to the Voyager comp that we ran earlier. And again, at NP2, Buntoria will handle the demon here in Wave 2 quite easily. We did have it originally at NP1. She also worked, but she left up to like 23k, so that's kind of why we just went ahead and bumped it up just to make sure so that you guys weren't having to card too much. Same thing here with Artoria at NP2. She leaves about 26k. This could get spicy depending on what you're doing. If you're trying to step it down to an NP1, I wouldn't advise that, especially not in this comp since we don't have any other support. There's really nobody else here to help out on the damage. But again, this can work. It should theoretically work, especially if you get Artoria Buster cards, that'll be fine. Even if you get all Castoria cards, you should still be okay in these sorts of situations. You just might have to end up in a 4-turn if that happens. Don't, you know, sit there and go like, oh god, now I can't do this comp. So again, it is an option. It's okay. I'm going to walk you guys through the turn order here in a second, and that is a little wonky, so make sure you guys pay attention. All right, so for the turn order here in turn 1, we're going to go ahead and start out by activating Bunny's first and third skills. That's going to get her some charge. We're going to use Castoria's skill 1 and then the skill 2 on Artoria. You're going to go ahead and use Artoria's skill 1 and skill 3 herself, and then use the Mystic Code skill 2 on Bunny, and that should bring her up to charge. You can use Bunny's skill 2 here if you think you need it in order to shuffle the cards or for the crit, so that is going to make this at least a little bit more consistent on wave 1. Now here in turn 2, go ahead and utilize Bunny's NP. She should have had the attack up, and she should now easily handle the demon at NP2. Now here in turn 3, go ahead and activate Artoria's skill 2, that's her Dragon Core, and then go ahead and use the Mystic Code damage buff on Artoria and fire off the NP. Make sure you choose any Artoria cards you can find in order to help you in case Canis gets low rolled with about 26k HP remaining at NP2. Hey guys, that's going to be a wrap for Shishoufest. I hope you found something in this video that you were capable of doing. Again, we try to always make it as malleable, as interchangeable as we possibly can. Again, we are going to probably take a little bit of a break before we start on Christmas Lotto. That is going to be something for future CAD that he won't have to worry about right now. And I will try to get you guys some more other videos in the meantime. Again, I hope you guys have good luck on all of your rolls upcoming. Hope you have a great time with the anniversary. NE5 should be a massive success and hit on NA. And I will see you guys for the next one. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. We've got a great community there to always answer your questions. And if you guys have any questions about any of the comps, let me know down in the comments below. See you guys later.